Every great book hides a story beyond its pages. Discover remarkable authors, unforgettable novels, and the secrets behind the words. Welcome to Stories Between the Lines. By the age of 30, most people believe they understand how adult life works. They know how to work, pay bills, make decisions, and live with the consequences. The more answers they find, the more questions appear. Why does reaching a goal not always bring satisfaction? Why does the future we waited for so long quickly become an ordinary present? And how much of our view of the world truly belongs to us? They change the questions we ask ourselves. Today, we will look at 5 philosophical books that can change the way a man sees time, freedom, love, death, and consciousness. They are books that can quietly alter the angle from which you see the world. It is simply an age when old explanations often stop working. The phrase "just work harder" does not explain what all that work is for. The instruction to follow your dream means little when you are not sure the dream is truly yours. You can finally get what you wanted and discover that the restlessness inside you has not disappeared. What matters? What is under our control? And how should we live when time is limited? The first book is The Wisdom of Insecurity by Alan Watts. For most of his life, a man tries to create a sense of security. He saves money, makes plans, searches for reliable work, and prepares for possible problems. The problem begins when preparing for the future completely replaces living in the present. We also fear the fact that we cannot fully control it. What will happen if I lose my job? What if I chose the wrong path? Watts reminds us that absolute security is impossible. Life is always changing, and trying to stop it is like trying to hold water in a closed fist. The harder we try to keep everything unchanged, the more clearly we feel it slipping away. Then one day, we realize there is no separate moment when life officially begins. It is made not only of major achievements, but also of ordinary mornings, familiar roads, quiet conversations, and a few minutes before sleep. It asks us to stop treating the future as the only place where happiness can exist. You can only become more present while it is happening. The second book is The Myth of Sisyphus by Albert Camus. Is life worth living? If the universe does not explain why we are here, if justice is not guaranteed, and if death is unavoidable, where can meaning come from? In the ancient myth, Sisyphus is condemned to push a huge stone up a mountain again and again. Each time he nearly reaches the summit, the stone rolls back down. We wake up, work, solve problems, and repeat familiar actions. Even our most important achievements will eventually disappear. The absence of a ready-made meaning does not have to be a tragedy. It can become a form of freedom. If the world has not written a final script for us, then we are free to choose our own response to it. It is the decision to live consciously despite uncertainty, to love even though love can end, to create even though nothing lasts forever, to begin again while knowing there is no final victory. Mondays turn into Fridays, projects are completed and forgotten, and new possessions quickly lose their novelty. Instead, he asks us to stop waiting for meaning to arrive from somewhere outside ourselves. Sisyphus becomes free when he sees his fate clearly and continues walking anyway. His attitude toward every step is still his own. It becomes something we create through the way we live. The third book is The Book of Disquiet by Fernando Pessoa. Its central voice, Bernardo Soares, works as an assistant bookkeeper and appears to live an uneventful life. He watches strangers, weather, light in windows, and the movement of the city. Pessoa makes us ask how much of the world we see is created by our own mind. Two people can stand in the same room, experience the same event, and leave with completely different memories. Reality always passes through our personality, fears, desires, and past experience. We never see the world from a perfectly neutral position. We are often certain that we see a situation exactly as it is. But perhaps that person lives inside a different version of the same reality. It means our own perception also has limits. A man may look calm while entire disasters are unfolding inside him. He may have an ordinary job and still possess an imagination capable of creating whole universes. After 30, it is easy to start measuring yourself by visible results. Pessoa reminds us that much of human life cannot be measured that way. Sometimes the most important event of the day happens silently, inside a thought that is never spoken aloud. You can open it for a few pages and allow one idea to follow you through the day. It makes the world deeper, and it reminds us that a quiet life is not necessarily an empty life. The fourth book is The Denial of Death by Ernest Becker. Most people rarely think about death directly. We discuss health, age, safety, and the future, but we avoid naming the central fear. Becker argues that the awareness of death quietly influences a huge part of human behavior. A person knows that his life will end, yet he also wants to feel important. He wants to leave something behind, create a family, build a career, gain recognition, or become part of an idea that will outlive him. Becker describes these systems as forms of symbolic immortality. This does not mean that all achievement is meaningless. The problem begins when a person does not understand which fear is driving his ambition. He may believe he simply wants success, while secretly trying to prove that his existence matters. He may defend his status or beliefs because without them he feels exposed. The book also changes the way we interpret other people. Arrogance may hide a fear of insignificance. The desire for power may be an attempt to defeat a private sense of helplessness. Even the need to be right can protect a person from the thought that his worldview is fragile. After 30, death begins to feel less abstract. You notice your parents getting older. You hear about illness among people your own age. The years seem to move faster, and some possibilities no longer feel endless. You can distract yourself again, or use this awareness to choose more carefully how you spend your time. The denial of death does not teach us to live in constant fear. Instead, it helps us see the fear that is already present but usually remains hidden. When a man accepts his own mortality, it becomes easier to leave other people's competitions behind. Not every victory deserves years of your life. Not every opinion needs to be defended. Not every injury needs to be carried forever. The awareness of death can make life feel more urgent, but also more honest. The fifth book is The Art of Loving by Erich Fromm. Love is often presented as something that either happens or does not happen. You meet the right person, feel a powerful attraction, and then the relationship is supposed to develop naturally. Fromm considers this one of the great mistakes of modern life. For him, love is not only a feeling, it is a capacity and a practice. It requires attention, responsibility, respect, and knowledge of another person. Like any art, love cannot be mastered through desire alone. Fromm points to a strange contradiction. People want to be loved, but they ask much less often whether they know how to love. They improve their appearance, status, and ability to impress, as if trying to increase their value in the marketplace of relationships. But attractiveness does not automatically create intimacy. Real love does not mean disappearing into another person. It brings two people together while preserving their individuality. It is not control, dependence, or a constant need to have your value confirmed. To love means seeing the other person not as a cure for loneliness, but as a separate human being. In your 30s, this book sounds different than it does in youth. By this age, many people already carry disappointment. They understand that powerful emotion does not guarantee a mature relationship. You can desperately desire someone and still know almost nothing about them. You can fear losing a relationship not because of love, but because you are afraid of being alone. You can demand closeness while remaining unable to pay attention. Fromm expands the meaning of love. He speaks not only about romantic partners but also about friendship, family, humanity, and respect for one's own life. A person who sees the world only as a place of competition cannot switch love on in one isolated part of life. His attitude toward people appears everywhere. The Art of Loving forces us to ask an uncomfortable question. Not, have I found the right person? But, what kind of person do I become when I am close to others? That question is harder because responsibility can no longer be placed entirely on fate or on a partner. These 5 books are very different. Alan Watts asks us to stop postponing life until complete security arrives. Albert Camus shows that the absence of a ready-made meaning can become the beginning of freedom. Fernando Pessoa reveals the depth and limits of subjective perception. Ernest Becker explains how the fear of death influences ambition and conflict. Erich Fromm treats love as an art that must be learned. You do not have to agree with every author. The value of reading is not in replacing your own mind with someone else's system. It is more useful to enter into an argument with the author. Notice where his words feel precise and where they create resistance. Sometimes irritation is a sign that a book has touched a belief we stopped questioning long ago. These works do not need to be read in a particular order. You can begin with the question that feels closest to your life right now. If the future makes you anxious, begin with Watts. If life feels like meaningless repetition, turn to Camus. If you struggle to understand your own mind, open Pessoa. If ambition no longer brings satisfaction, read Becker. If your relationships keep repeating the same pattern, begin with Fromm. Then reading stops being the completion of a list and becomes a personal conversation. This collection does not promise instant transformation, but it can help you stop. Look at your familiar life from a distance and notice the questions buried beneath work, entertainment, and daily urgency. Together, these books do not simply replace one set of beliefs with another. They change the angle from which we look. After reading them, it becomes harder to believe every anxious thought automatically. It becomes harder to treat your own perception as the only possible one. It becomes harder to measure a life only by achievement and visible results. A philosophical book may not transform your life in one evening, but it can give you an idea that remains for years. One precise idea can change a decision. A decision can change a habit, and a habit can slowly change the direction of an entire life. Which of these 5 books have you already read? And what idea has most deeply changed the way you see the world?